Hello and welcome to Growing Through Connection, a podcast that explores the life-changing impact of emotionally focused therapy. Join us as we discover how EFT helps create and secure lasting connections, leading to more fulfilling lives. In this special first season, we offer a series of short conversations with the late Dr. Sue Johnson, the pioneering visionary behind EFT. Sue shares her personal journey, reflects on the evolution of her work, and offers powerful insights into the science of emotional connection. So settle in and enjoy this unique opportunity to get to know Sue while discovering how EFT can deepen your relationships and enrich your life in ways you'd never imagined.
Sue, so tell me, how does EFT contribute to long-term mental health and resilience?
That's an interesting question because EFT for years and years was seen as a couples therapy. And so people would say, oh, this therapy is about getting people together, stopping them fighting, helping them be nicer to each other, changing the symptoms of relationship distress. And of course, it's true. That is what it's about. But because it's attachment orientated, based on attachment science, it's on target in a whole different way, which is that we know that certain relationships, if people can be open and responsive to each other, aren't just better or less distressed or more satisfying, they actually grow you. Good attachment bonds grow you as a human being. They're the natural place that you grow as a human being. If you like, they're the sea and you're the fish. And if you're in a loving, open, warm, safe sea, you grow. And if somebody does what we usually do in mental health in our society, which is grab you and put you on the dock to look at you, you look pretty weird and you look insane and you look crazy. Well, yeah, you do, because I'm just taking you out of the water. So attachment science says that we're not built for emotional disconnection and isolation, and our nervous systems literally can't deal with it. What we are built for is connection, safe connection with others. And that's our greatest resource. It's our greatest survival code. And when we have that, we can flower as human beings. We can grow. And this is not theory. There's thousands of studies that prove, for example, that young children who feel safe with at least one parent and can count on that parent, who know that the parent will be there if they need them, are calmer, they're better at dealing with their emotions, they're better at listening to what's happening inside them, they're better at dealing with stress. If they get hurt, they're more resilient with dealing with that. We know this is true. We know that, for example, if we're talking about developing PTSD in war, after a rape is the trauma that is highest level of PTSD, okay? We know that you're much less likely to develop PTSD. You're much more likely to be able to recover from those things if you have had at least one secure, loving relationship in your past that has taught you that you can count on others, you are important, you do matter, and that your reality is valid, and that you're not bad, crazy, or insane because something bad has happened to you. So, yes, the quality of your connection with others, which translates into the quality of your connection with self and how you deal with your emotions, is massively impacted by an on-target couple therapy like EFT. And of course, is massively impacted when we do emotionally focused individual therapy with you, where we focus on your relationship with yourself, and that's an interesting one because we deal with a lot of traumatized people. And our experience is, for example, when you reach and ask people to pinpoint the moment when they knew how vulnerable they were and how their vulnerability had no solution. So that leaves them no choice but to shut down and numb out or freak out and just wait for the threat to happen again. We don't have infinite ways of dealing with our emotions. When you talk to people about that and you ask them to just see that vulnerable part of themselves, could be, my last client was like when he was 11 and his father left and told him, don't upset your mother. Don't feel anything that upsets your mother. Don't do anything that upsets your mother. And his oldest brother said, it's time for you to be a man. You need to man up. You need to be male. You need to be a soldier. You need to be... those two things are like going to drive you crazy. At 11 years old, you can't possibly do both. And so he just played video games from the time he was about 11 to the time he was 17. And then, of course, he went into the most difficult part of the army to prove himself, right? So when I asked him to see his vulnerable 11-year-old self, who was faced with this impossible set of demands to be considered okay, he says, I can't see him. I say, right. You can't see his face. No, I can't see his face. I don't want to see his face anyway. He's just a wimp and pathetic and no, I can't see his face. I said, And my response is, I understand that you can't see him. Nobody saw him, did they? Nobody saw him. He was invisible, wasn't he? He was alone. Nobody saw him, and nobody cared about his pain or his confusion, right? This isn't what he expects me to say. He expects me to persuade him not to feel bad about himself. I'm not going to do that. It's a waste of time. So I say, so you can't see that little part of you. And then I might say, I can see him. This is what I see, right? And he does not contradict me or evade me or give me a lecture, which for this client was quite amazing. And I have to do this another 4 times in 4 sessions. And then EFT is fast because we're on target. EFIT is fast because we know where we're going. We've got a map to people's inner longings and stuck places and what they need to grow. So it's fast. So I say, can we go back to the little 11-year-old? Can you see his face? He says, yes, I can see his face. I said, okay. What do you see in his face? I said, well, I don't know. I said, I want you to slow down with me, okay? You just slow down. Let's look at his face. And he does. He takes the risk. He slows down. And I say, what do you see in his face? And this is so typical of trauma survivors, I can't tell you. And sort of what I was taught in graduate school was trauma was all about fear. And more I find that trauma is about deep grief at the human longings that were never seen or answered, and which left this person completely alone, unable to deal with the overwhelmingness of life, left them with no solution, vulnerability. So I say, what do you see in his face? And he said, he's sad. I say, yes. He's sad, isn't he? He's a sad little boy, all by himself. No one sees him. And no one wants the part of him that he knows is there. That is a little boy that just wants to be seen and accepted and not told who he should please and who he should be. Gradually he goes into his sadness, which is his core issue in his PTSD and his depression. And as he starts to be able to touch that sadness and befriend it and engage it and walk through it with me and make sense of it, his sense of self and his sense of competence at dealing with his inner world and his emotions and his relationships change. I see him 14 times. He has full-blown PTSD. I see him 14 times, and then I have to stop for reasons totally unassociated with him. And he tells me, which is very difficult for him because he told me at the beginning, therapists can't handle me. I'm much too intense for therapists, and you won't be able to handle me either because you're not clever enough and you haven't read the existential philosophers. And I said, oh, I've read the existential philosophers. Who would you like to talk about? Heidegger? He just looks at me, I thought, no, man, you're going to make it as easy as that to wipe me out. But, he was a challenge. At the end, he says, I'm not fighting with my wife anymore. I said, oh. So I don't get angry with her when she gets close. Oh, that's interesting, isn't it? Because if she gets close, she's going to see you, isn't she? Yeah, right. And that was what was dangerous, wasn't it? Yeah, I understand. Oh, and something's happening. I feel good about what I'm doing on my farm. I said, hey. And, he starts to tell me all this. What the hell's happened? 14 sessions. It's me sit and have a chat with him. This is people talk about talk therapy doesn't work. Oh, yes, it does. If you know how to be on target and you know where you're going. And anyway, it's not just talk therapy, because when I talk to him and lower my voice and hold him and validate his inner world, his body is completely reacting. His mind is desperately trying to decide what to do with me with these strange messages that are coming in that he has no place to put. He doesn't know what to do with me. At one point in therapy, he said, I don't know why I'm doing this. I'm happier. I should just go up the mountain with my dogs. That's where I was happiest. I'm happiest by myself with my dogs reading existential philosophy. I said, right. And then I just say, nice try, guy. That's just a big diversion. So I say, let's go back to what you said to me a minute ago about feeling sad, shall we? No, I'd rather talk to you about being on the top of a mountain with my dogs. But, people have very good reasons for blocking and protecting themselves. Why should they trust you? You're taking them into foreign territory. They don't know where they're going. You have to know. If you have a map to who people are, which attachment science gives you, our research gives you, if you know how to deal with holding their emotion and helping them deal with it at the same time, you know where you're going. You know what mental health and resilience looks like. It looks like an acceptance of self, a tolerance of vulnerability, an awareness that you can be vulnerable and still feel competent and special. And you know where you're going. So when you know where you're going, the client, even though some traumatized people have no reason on earth to ever trust another human being in their life, the client picks that up.
Thank you for joining us on Growing Through Connection. As we conclude, remember that connection is at the heart of human experience. Keep exploring, keep connecting, and we'll see you next time on Growing Through Connection. This podcast is a production of Sue Johnson. Learn more about EFT at drsuejohnson.com and at the International Center for Excellence in Emotionally Focused Therapy site at iceft.com. To find a qualified emotionally focused therapist in your area, visit iceft.com and click on our Find an EFT Therapist directory. If you enjoyed this podcast, please leave us a 5-star rating and be sure to tell your friends. Until next time, stay connected.